Join me as I take on the challenge of finding out if Navy sailors really eat fresh caught fish on board, and I'm ready to taste test whatever they serve up. Sailing across the world's oceans, Navy sailors have some of the most unique experiences on the planet, and that's especially true when it comes to food. You've probably wondered, do they really eat fresh caught fish on board? I mean, who wouldn't want to indulge in a juicy, just caught seafood feast in the middle of the ocean? Life at sea can be tough, especially when it comes to sourcing fresh food. I mean, you're hundreds, even thousands of miles away from the nearest grocery store. It's not like you can just pop out to the local market to grab some fresh produce. And when you're on a Navy vessel, storage space is limited, so you can't exactly stock up on a month's worth of perishable goods. That means planners have to get creative when it comes to feeding sailors. Fresh food is a luxury when you're at sea for weeks on end. It's mostly non-perishable goods like canned veggies and dry storage staples. And don't even get me started on the challenges of keeping food fresh in the midst of rough seas and changing weather conditions. It's not easy, let me tell you. Add to that the fact that Navy ships often have to stay at sea for extended periods of time, and you can see why fresh food becomes a scarce commodity. I mean, think about it, you're relying on supplies that were stocked up weeks ago, and there's no guarantee they'll even be edible by the time you get to them. So, how do Navy ships manage their food supplies? Well, for starters, they do have some pretty cool systems in place to keep sailors fed. From hydroponic gardens to advanced food storage systems, the Navy has invested some serious cash into making sure their people have access to decent grub. And of course, there's always the occasional fishing trip. Who knows, maybe you'll even catch your own dinner. Fishing trips are actually a pretty common occurrence on Navy vessels. It's a great way to supplement the standard dish MREs and canned goods. And let's be real, there's something pretty cool about catching your own dinner in the middle of the ocean. I've heard stories of sailors pulling in massive fish and then gathering around the galley to cook them up and share stories of the catch. I've got a great story from a sailor who was on a deployment in the Pacific. They were out on patrol for weeks, and morale was starting to get a little low. Then, one of the junior officers decides to take a few guys out on a fishing trip during some downtime. Long story short, they end up catching a massive tuna, and the whole ship comes together to cook it up and share in the feast. It was one of those moments that really brought the crew together, you know. Of course, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Fresh caught fish isn't always on the menu, sadly. But for those sailors who do get the chance to catch and eat their own seafood, it's a memory that'll last a lifetime. So to answer the question, do Navy sailors really eat fresh caught fish on board? Well, while it's not the norm for every sailor, it does happen, and it's a pretty special experience when it does. And who knows, maybe one day I'll get to taste test some of that fresh caught goodness for myself. Thanks for watching, guys. What do you think about Navy food? Do you have any stories or experiences to share? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to check out our next video on naval life.